And I'm such a big fan of joining organizations, such as like Women in Tech or some of the other either industry or even woman-focused communities in Austin or even, across the nation, and just like getting really comfortable with your elevator pitch and having those conversations with folks about what you're interested in and, seeing what connections they might potentially have as well, and just like showing up. And it also helps you just get really clear on what your goals are and your intentions in the job market as well. So just
love that.
The people.
Yeah. And I mean, once you establish yourself within a community, look at outside of the actual events, figure out how you can proactively market. But huge fan of Austin, but I'm part of the local Suncoast PMI project management chapter. We have a meetup group, we have a LinkedIn group, we have a Facebook group, we have a Twitter handle. So again, you're not going to be on every platform and you don't need to, but think about once you're a member, are you doing a plug in the meetup? I'm looking for a project management role with an agile discipline. Here's my LinkedIn. Does anyone have jobs available or recommendations for me? And then cross-promoting yourself in the LinkedIn group, looking through the LinkedIn group for recruiters that are part of the Suncoast, like within that group, and just reaching out. I see you're connected with Women in Tech, demonstrating that connection. So really leveraging social media is another strategy that the specific groups related to the communities that you're active in.
Love it. Does anyone here joining this session have any particular questions that they'd like to ask?
I had a question. So I was just speaking with a colleague the other day about this. We were talking about recommendations on LinkedIn, and we were both a little unclear on recommendations, how much of that needs to include technical data versus more of that soft skill speak and about credibility and character, et cetera. She was more of the mindset that you need to include specific like metrics of performance and things like that. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna let Erica take the lead on this.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting, different strokes for different folks popped into my head. So get them for all. I'm a huge fan of asking yourself, who have I, accomplished something for in the last year, 3 years, 5 years? And I like doing this exercise, kind of an annual career audit, if you will. And then asking, not waiting until you're in a job search to ask for recommendations, but get them for all of the above. Soft skills is really important. Initiative is really important, showing that you're willing to learn and help people. If you've done anything for a community like this or a nonprofit, that could be another avenue. I mean, first and foremost, I know this sounds cheesy, but managers and recruiters are looking for good human beings that are willing to help others, that are team-oriented and coachable and willing to learn. I saw someone post that they're part of a boot camp right now. Ask somebody associated with your boot camp. And then the second piece of that is once you've got the recommendations, then you're in a point to pick and choose. And it's good to consult with your recruiter. We should know, and the talent acquisition person at the company should know, what does this particular hiring manager value? What are they looking for? I've got 4, testimonials of my work, one from a nonprofit, 2 technical, 1 focused on my leadership. Would any of those be helpful in my candidacy? Does that help, Caitlin?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I love that. Just like being a dynamic candidate, right? And I think that's why connecting with people is always the most successful approach, is that oftentimes, if you're looking at an application, it's just a piece of paper, right? But when you've really connected with somebody, you see their people skills or their soft skills, you're able to have a conversation with them. It really humanizes them, as Erica was mentioning. And so another way to capture that is through those like LinkedIn profiles and making sure that they're diverse and they're dynamic and they really fully communicate like all the dimensions of who you are and how you're involved, not only like professionally, but in your associations and community as well.
Yeah, it's what else do you have? outside of a resume, when I get a resume, I'm like, what else do you have that can really market and brand yourself? And a lot of the questions I ask, have you taken additional training? Have you taken courses towards certifications that maybe you don't have yet? Have you helped a nonprofit in any way, either with a technology project or, you know, outside of it? Have you attended a code camp or SQL Saturday or any other conference? And just asking yourself some of these questions, just what else do you have that could be show you're different? Because those extracurriculars, I like to call them, professional extracurriculars, that stuff matters. And for finding recruiters, I shared a resource. Amanda, do you give advice on how people can find good recruiters? Is that?
I don't, and I'm like learning so much from you right now. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, this can really be a game changer. And I said it in the last session, and I'll say it again. People prospect jobs, but very few people prospect recruiters. And so my favorite tip is each industry has an award. We are no different. So if you want to find, because that's a question we get a lot, how do I find a good recruiter that aligns with what I'm looking for, that's not going to ghost me? So this is a good list. Less than 2% of firms win this award. But that's, you can, you know, look at that list. And again, I'm a huge fan of one a week, one a day, whatever your schedule allows. Just don't be afraid to take this, print out this list, add it to your agenda, and then just cross it off. Find a recruiter that works there or call into the office. We have our contact numbers for every single office. I'm sure other staffing firms are the same way on our website. Don't be afraid to just simply call in and, hey, this is what I'm looking for. You know, can you connect me to the recruiter that supports cybersecurity jobs, right? And just transfer me.
Love that. Are there any other, does anyone else have any questions? No?
I have one.
Oh.
I get this question a lot and I have a hard time answering it, and I would love your opinions. But I get a lot of women who have taken a break to raise children and are re-entering the workforce. What are, besides the stuff you have already said, are there any other specific points you have for them?
Yeah, that's a really common question that, you know, we see all the time as well. It's like, how do I talk about my resume gap? And I think, yeah, being prepared to discuss it is really important. And just thinking about all of the skills in which like you've gained during that gap, right? So maybe it is that you took some time to raise children. Like what skills did you acquire, whether it be like time management or I'm not a mom, so I know that there's tons of skills that you require while raising children at home, but just like really thinking about ways in which like those skills are really transferable to the position. And so yeah, Erica, do you have any additional?
Yeah. So one of my side hustles, I like to call it at Apex, is I work with a lot of our STEM nonprofits. We've got about 15 that we work with. And so this has been, I'm delighted that this has been a growing, just been growing over the last 3 years, especially. But I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, you know, the organization CompTIA, which many don't know that CompTIA is actually a nonprofit. They're the certification body and research arm for IT infrastructure primarily. So they do the search for A+, Network+, Security+. But I don't know when, it's maybe 2014, they launched their Creating IT Futures philanthropic arm. So that's a great example. They have tech academies in a number of cities. Those are virtual right now. So these are opportunities to apply and upskill. And then they have career coaching and partners as a part of that. I mentioned in the last session, we do a lot with the Microsoft's Software and Systems Academy. So odds are that that's an avenue that you could look at, or you could just upskill on your own. It's funny that the first question I always got when I was an applications recruiter was, they didn't care about the resume. What's the GitHub profile, right? So this is, you know, if you don't already have a tech passion project, right? I'm going to butcher this because I'm not actually in the tech field. I've never written a line of code, so maybe this will make somebody laugh. But there was someone locally that had worked at an aquarium for like 10 years, but he built this Raspberry Pi device leveraging machine learning to identify trash. And then he just gave it to my local chapter of Keep Pinellas Beautiful. And that passion project, isn't that cool? You like that? But that took up his whole, we weren't going to submit him initially until we learned about that. And I know him through a Tech for Good group. So I helped him frame that in a resume. But there's passion projects, there's upskilling, there's free courses out there. So just, you know, focus on stuff like that. Attending conferences, virtual conferences. Happened this week. It was free. That thing's usually $1,500. So taking advantage of all of these free educational resources coupled with pet projects.
I wanted to chime in here really quick. Hi guys, I'm Dom. I'm a tech systems digital recruiter. Back to Shay's question really quick about, you know, people taking time off to raise kids. What I've noticed just from personal experience in this job is that a lot of our hiring managers are a lot more understanding these days and lenient when it comes to there being gaps in employment because of those reasons. You know, like everyone has struggles that they're dealing with, health problems, things happen, especially during this pandemic. So what I've learned is that if I'm, you know, connecting with this candidate and understanding their story, then I'm able to go in and explain their story to the hiring manager to explain what that gap was or why. And so often that candidate gets an interview anyway. It's not as big of a deal as it used to be.
I love that point. Yeah. It's the gap isn't as important. It's not as much as a red flag. Just be prepared to speak to, well, in your 6 months or, you know, 2 years off, what have you done to keep your skills fresh, even if that's 1 hour a week or even a month?
Yeah, and it's a great way to also assess the fit of a potential employer, right? You want to work for a company that really values flexibility and gives things like, you know, paid maternal or paternal leave. So, you know, if you're having a conversation with someone who's interviewing you and they're not being like cool or understanding about your gap, that's a really great indicator to you that that might not be an appropriate company that values flexibility and women who you know, are super women and their jobs don't end when they clock out at 5.
The other thing I would say to add to that and to Dom's point and everything said is think about who your references are. So when I work with candidates and I'm looking at either gaps of employment or maybe they've gotten laid off or whatever it might be, the only thing that I'm really looking at is who they provide as references. Can they speak on their behalf? And then I can go to a hiring manager, to my client, and say, hey, XYZ happened. They were laid off. They had a child, whatever it might be. But their manager said this about them. They're a great employee. Here's how it aligns to the job you're interviewing with. So that to me is more important than almost anything else, right? So be really mindful of who you choose as references, and maybe not the person that's sitting next to you or your peer, but really someone who knows your work, your culture fit, the technical skills, the non-technical skills. So to me, in this field and recruiting, that's like my number one. So.
That is such a good point, Rachel. I can't tell you how many times I've had candidates who give me their references who maybe they haven't connected with in so long. It was just past managers. And then I'll get on the phone with them and these managers won't actually speak very highly of them, or they won't really remember much. So definitely know who your references are and check in with them regularly.
Can I chime in on that? That is so true. I have students that I will get an email from somebody and they're like, oh, the student asked you to be a reference. I'm like, or wants you to be a reference. I'm like, first of all, I don't know who the heck this is because I have a lot of students. And second of all, like they never asked. And so I will tell them and I'll tell them in class, but they still do it. They don't listen to me. But I'll say, you know, in order for me to make it helpful for you to get the job, look at the job description and then tell me what you want me to highlight. So that then I can, you know, talk about all the great things, because if you just let me go, I'm not going to remember stuff, and, you know, people are busy. So make it as easy for your reference person as possible. And then because you made it so easy for them, they're going to probably go overboard. So that's just my idea.
No, I love that point. I mean, I think the recency effect, like I had that situation where someone I helped train and hadn't worked with in 6 years, they reached out for a reference. And I was like, when did I work with them? How long? And that's why I'm such a big advocate of getting, you know, recommendations before you need them, and getting those as close to real time after you've helped them as possible, and proactively sharing them. I love that point, taking them from your profile, taking assessments, even if you've done technical assessments, anything on HackerRanks, you've done something with Capture the Flag. There's so many different competitive platforms out there. Maybe you're active with Code Goddess. Like there's just so many different things you could provide to help you in your candidacy. And especially if you haven't been working in a little bit, it's good to provide that stuff proactively. What else? What other questions? One of the other things,
from
Amanda,
sorry, Erica. I am looking for candidates. What I would like to hear from is, what are candidates looking for? Particularly when it comes to programming, developer kind of jobs, they're in big demand now. You know, we would like to hire folks who want to continue staying with us. We are small, but we do offer flexibility and other options which might be helpful to them. But truly, I would like to know what they're looking for in terms of the environment, maybe the salary ranges, and the technology itself. Apologies for the noise.
That's okay. I mean, my first reaction to that is, it's funny because tomorrow I have on my calendar, I'm reading all these job seeker studies and motivators. Maybe I'll drop some of those links in there for you, Malai, but do kind of a reverse exercise. So one of my favorite exercises for job seekers is understand your market worth. So I'm a huge fan of PayScale. If anyone's used PayScale, or if you have a recommendation on something similar, I love PayScale. It's 20 minutes and it gives you a complete package in the range for kind of where you're at and what you should be targeting. So that's an exercise you can do to understand what people are looking for. I'm a big fan of the DICE tech salary report, and just, you know, reports like that Indeed put out there. Gartner has one, but there's lots of just kind of technology job seeker studies that hit on the best motivators. And then one of the top things you can do is look up the list of small technology best places to work. Malai, and I would encourage you, what are we doing and what could we be doing to make our, you know, our offers and our environment more attractive based on the trends and patterns you're seeing?
Thank you. Sounds good. Also, last question there. What would be good places to look for candidates? Obviously, you know, we are looking in places like Austin Women in Tech, but what could be some of the other places where we can look for candidates?
Women Who Code is really big in Austin as well.
Sorry, what was it again? Women in Code?
Women Who Code. I would just do like a simple Google search and do these types of things. I think that's a really great opportunity. And then sponsoring things like these, even if it's a, you know, just like a partial sponsor, gives you an opportunity to speak about your company, why people want to work there. And then we have a section later that says like who's looking and hiring, and you can announce what jobs you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, I just dropped a lot of homework for you that I think will be helpful.
Thank you both so much. It's appreciated.
I wanted to add a couple things to your first question too. So being competitive on your salary, but also a lot of people are taking cultural fits into consideration. So making sure that you guys do have a good maternity and paternity policy, making sure that DEI is a really important thing that you guys are focusing on. Everyone is looking for remote. So if that's an opportunity and gives you an opportunity to save some money, because they are going to require more to sit in Austin. And then along with like, if you can showcase like your ERG groups and stuff like that, I think it gives people like a home. And so they'll not only choose you, but maybe stay longer as well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And to spin it back to, the job seekers in the room, it's good to vocalize what it is you're looking for and ask questions. Because even something like, hey, I'm very concerned about and interested in continuing to grow my skills. What do you offer in terms of certifications, conference reimbursement? Opportunities or mentorship is a big one. Asking how they've adopted in their orientation processes over the last 18 months. Don't be afraid to ask these questions because, again, a lot of job seekers, I don't know if you see this, Amanda, they're timid about asking and focusing on what they want when this should be an interview, should be a conversation, and asking questions on some of that stuff shows that you're truly interested in the organization, and it's demonstrating to them that you want to learn, which can be a differentiator for yourself.
Yes, I love that so much. And it always helps too, I think, to quell some of the nerves of an interview by really refocusing it as like you are equally interviewing them as a potential employer and seeing if it's a good fit for yourself as well. And so it is so important as part of your interview preparation to also really do a deep dive on the company and, see what pictures that they have posted, see what sort of like employee events or like engagement they have, their stance on the community impact and DEI statements. And it's also a really great way to just like gauge employee satisfaction too in an interview. If you directly ask your interviewee, how they like working with the company. And I think their answers are really going to reveal what the company culture is like.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Garson. I'm actually here from the city of Austin for one of the departments here we're hiring. And what's fun for us is that we've never really had to do this before. We've never really had to recruit. All we ever did was we put the job out there and then dozens of people would apply and we would pick the best person for us, right? And things are different now. Public sector has different advantages. Not everybody's into the public sector. And our rules around recruitment are clunky and slow. So we're learning, and just that I'm here at this event is something kind of a little bit different than what we've done in the past. So this has been really great for me to sort of see what other people are doing and to talk about. I like the idea that you said, we don't offer a lot in the way of money. I will tell you, public sector employees never make as much as private sector employees. I'm going to kid you that you will. But we have great benefits here. We do have the paid paternity kind of leave and the training opportunities. So maybe we need to focus more on those things that we do have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now's the time, if you don't have a marketing pitch of your, bringing in folks from HR, from training, from benefits, seasoned employees, people that take advantage of the perks. If you don't have kind of a commercial, I feel like I'm hearing that word for your company once a week, it's time to put that together.
And a good reminder for a job seeker too, that not only your salary is negotiable, that these are conversations that you should be having. And if it's not meeting your salary expectations or needs, have a conversation about what else the employer can offer you to help offset that.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining and the great comments and questions and just input from everyone.